Professor Charli Carpenter, representing University of Massachusetts Amherst's Human Security Lab, where my colleagues, my student researchers, and myself use data analytics to assist global stakeholders in understanding how to use international law to build a more secure world. And as scientists, we approach questions like these on the evidence. We have tools to measure how laws and norms interact or reinforce one another. And right now, we are measuring, using opinion research, TPNW complementarity with older nuclear norms. Now, this session has focused on disarmament and non-proliferation norms, which bind different groups of states. But the TPNW also comprehensively prohibits nuclear weapons use under Article 1D, based on the fundamental principles of international humanitarian law, to which all states, even non-party states, are bound. So one achievement of the TPNW could be to reinforce the nuclear non-use norm itself, and this could plausibly unite and strengthen efforts around both disarmament and non-proliferation. So what does the evidence show so far? Is the TPNW reinforcing the nuclear taboo? Is it doing so even in countries like my own, who possess these nuclear weapons and who reject the treaty? Our research is still ongoing, but I want to share some encouraging preliminary findings. Our poll shows an overwhelming majority of Americans, 83%, believe using a nuclear weapon would be a terrible crime. We care most about the other 17%, that minority who believe nuclear weapons could legitimately be used on cities. Can a treaty like the TPNW change their minds? It turns out, yes, it can. More than half of them reverse their answer when we tell them about the Geneva Convention's prohibition on indiscriminate attacks, and an even larger number, 2/3, change their minds when we also tell them about the TPNW. And with no mention of the Geneva rules, the TPNW alone shifts attitudes by 33%. Now you may ask, what difference does public opinion make? After all, it is leaders, not ordinary citizens, with their fingers on the button. But my team also studies those in a position to actually conduct a nuclear launch, members of the military. And among military-trained respondents who think nuclear use might be legal in some cases, learning about the TPNW changes their minds too, even more than civilians, 71% of the time. They leave our experiment believing that nuclear use would be a war crime. And this matters because the military are required to disobey unlawful orders. Now, at Human Security Lab, we don't just conduct surveys. We specialize in asking and analyzing how people explain their answers in their own words and how their minds can be changed. So in my remaining 2 minutes, I'll share with you some quotes from current and former US service members that demonstrate this changing hearts and minds effect. They answered the same question twice, weeks apart, before and after receiving information about the TPNW, a question about whether it would or would not ever be legally permissible to nuclear bomb a civilian city. On the first round, here's one respondent who chose sometimes permissible and wrote, "If the enemy is hiding among the population, then there's no choice." But later, at time 2, after learning about the TPNW, they changed their answer to never permissible, and they wrote, "Killing innocent people is never okay." Another example, at time 1, it's permissible to nuclear bomb a city to save lives like we did in World War II. Weeks later, the same respondent, after learning about the treaty, wrote it's never permissible and said, "Nuclear war kills everyone and destroys life as we know it." At time 1, military targets are sometimes in civilian populated areas. Same respondent later, "Nuclear weapons are an atrocity." At time 1, "I feel it depends on the circumstances." At time 2, "I believe it's unlawful." And I really like this one. At time 1, in all caps, "War is hell. Someone has to die." But at time 2, "Nuclear war is extremely dangerous." Yes, it is. Friends, these are just a few examples that illustrate our wider statistical finding The TPNW does indeed complement and reinforce the nuclear non-use norm, the nuclear taboo, which is the bedrock of both the disarmament and non-proliferation regimes. The treaty not only affirms what many already believe, it changes the minds of those who need convincing and those whose actions count. And right now, that could make all the difference. Thank you.
I thank you. Next.